It's not 1,000 new ideas. It's just one clear message spoken consistently until people begin to hear you. Your audience doesn't need new things, they need repetition. Hi, my name's Steve Kidd. I am a third generation minister, international best-selling author of 39 books and counting. I've had the wonderful, amazing privilege to work with nearly 5,000 authors, helping them write, publish, market their books to bestseller, and everything that goes beyond that. And what I really do, what I'm really here for you to do with you today is help you learn how to be clear, consistent, and connect with the people who are desperately waiting, wanting, needing for you to be in their life. And I just really want to see you fill that space in a way that only you can, in the powerful way that makes the difference that only you can make in this world. You're so amazingly incredible. You have such cool talents and such needed words and things that you do in this world. And yet, a lot of times the world convinces us that we need to continue changing it. We need to be something different. We need to come up with a new project, a new program, a new way of saying it, a new way of doing it, so that somehow we can impress the right person. And we just keep chasing. I was going to say tracking, but chasing, new ideas, new concepts, new theories, the latest AI thing. I was on a training this morning. You'll get a kick out of this because I've been in technology space, if you will, for most of my adult life, and yet I found myself this morning feeling overwhelmed. And I found a lot lately. There are a lot of teachers that are out there that are giving you just way too much for what reason, I'm not totally sure. And it becomes more and more and more and more stuff. And I don't know about you, but I get to the point where I'm just like overwhelmed. I'm just like, what I'd really like to do is really know how to do this one thing, and I'd really like it done in a way that isn't some mass fire hose live stream master class, whatever you want to call it, but really takes the time to go deep dive personally with you. I happen to have a friend of mine, that is a relatively, really high end actually marketing person, has been for a whole lot of years. And he's been saying something really interesting the last couple of months, I guess it's been. He really believes that because of all the things that are happening in AI, and this isn't any kind of, he's kind of a downer on AI, and I don't take that ride with him. But, he really believes that personal connection and really knowing a person is becoming more and more and more important in the world because of how easy it is. I think I've talked about this before. I ran into a video that was showing a 7-hour, and I didn't watch the whole 7 hours. They just showed a little clip from it, but a 7-hour live stream that was like a QVC kind of a thing that came out of Japan. The guy sold like don't quote me on this, but like $7 million worth of product over the course of 7 hours of being live. And then after having done that, then let the world know there was actually all AI driven. He just fed it with the right knowledge base, the right Q&A, enough of his virtual clone, if you will, and set it all up in such a way that the people thought that the two hosts that were on the screen were actually live, real human beings, and they were buying the product as though they went into the Home Shopping Channel or QVC or something like that. And, we're seeing a large demo of that, so there is that nature of AI. And I dig technology. I think it's cool. And I enjoy it a whole heck of a lot. But along with that comes more and more and more and more and more and more. Have I said more enough yet for you to get the point of our need to connect as people? We still have hopes and dreams, and we still have hurts and failures too. And the people, I don't know about you, but I know in my life, the ones that really get my time, the ones that really I want to reach out to and I enjoy spending time with, and especially the ones that are on my, on my actual schedule that I'm going to once a week or a couple times a week or every couple of weeks or whatever, I'm going to have conversations with them. It's because of that fact that we are connecting. Connection, not reinvention, not here's this new tool and here's this new tool, here's this new tip and here's this new trick. I worked with a company for about a month and a half last year. Great, amazing potential. And the person that is the founder of the company, she is an incredibly talented individual. The problem that I saw very quickly in there is they're so deeply invested in AI and AI is moving so quickly that they felt the necessity to be giving out all of the absolute, this is what's happening today, or at least this week, cutting edge release of information out there. And I, at the time, I didn't really understand it. And there was some things that didn't synergize, didn't work as well as I had hoped it was. I still dig the company. I think they're super cool and stuff, but there became some difficulty in that because as much as somebody who is a guru in a particular thing, and AI, and keep in mind, I went through the whole early days of the internet, the pre, real early super modem kind of things. And the problem that people that are on that bleeding edge pioneers, kind of a thing is that they tend to keep moving, keep going. Next thing, reinvent. And it's hard to really keep up with them. I don't know. It's kind of weird. I had a hard time getting it to initially come in. So I'm sorry you're having problems with it skipping. I was having weirdness with it when I was trying to tag you and others on Facebook too. I don't know. I don't know if it's something with StreamYard or if it's something with Facebook or if it's something kooky with my computer, which it could be. I've had some tech issues going on this morning. But anyway, that was my answer to Patricia's question. I really want you, and I'm not saying don't be the guru in your spiel. You are absolutely the doctor of you, and we've talked about that before. But I don't want you to fall into that massive, constant reinvention trap. This thing and that thing and this thing and this thing, boom, 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 scroll, and we give ourselves ADHD. And I'm not talking about those of you that do have that, and I'm not dissing you for having that. And I know that your brain works that way. And I get it on some extent. I don't believe I have ADHD, though the latest human design test I took makes me start questioning that. I'll have to talk to my friend that's an expert in that about that. But as a manifesting generator, I am used to spinning several plates. It's how my brain thinks, and so to be thinking about this thing, to have 20, 30, 40, 50, 100, 1,000, well, maybe not 1,000, but a couple hundred tabs open to the point where, Chrome is like croaking on me because it doesn't really want you to have more than one or two maybe tabs open at a time, and I'm pushing it to its absolute limits. I went to an i9 chip so that it would have the processing data to do it, and the computer technically has the processing data, but the program itself just cannot handle the concept of it. It's just like, yeah, I know. Make that sound again, Steve, right? But seriously, we spend So I understand that concept of spinning the multiple plates. And I'm not telling you, if you're that kind of a person or if you have ADHD, to not be exactly you, but I'm encouraging you to not fall into that reinvention trap. Okay. If your mind's going multiple different ways, try to learn how to let control the multiple directions your mind's going in. Do you understand what I mean? The difference between that? So that you have a genre, a thing, a one thing that is the heart and soul and core. You already have it. I mean, we've talked a lot about that those last couple of weeks and about the fact that there is that thing. And it doesn't matter how, and I've seen this so many times, especially with people with ADHD, people with autism, different things like that. There is that thing that you're really into. And when that subject comes up, you've got a lot to say about it. Okay. And if you happen to be like in the audience when somebody's talking about it and they get something wrong, they totally lost you. Your mind, your brain, your everything is totally going 1,000 miles an hour off in the other direction because they're totally wrong. And what you want to do is stand up in the audience and scream, no, that's not it, And that's my point. See, that's not you, that's not you going all over the place and having this thought about this thing and that thing. That's when you hit the heart and core and soul of your passion. You can stay there forever. You may have a ton of thoughts. You may have racing thoughts. You may not be able to speak fast enough to get out of your mouth the words. I was listening to one of the replays of one of the lives that I did where I was I could hardly listening back to myself. I could hardly keep up with my own self. And I knew what I was going to say. And I'm feeling a little bit that way today. I apologize for you if I'm going and speaking too fast. Add that to the tech issues that we're evidently having today, and it's going to make this live really fun. But it's not about that. And the ADHD, the autism, the squirrels, the lack of focus, all of that, that's a whole totally different conversation than what I'm talking about today. I'm talking about that voice in your head coming from outside of you that the world is telling you you need to be something different. You need to change up what you're doing in some way, somehow, so that you can be good enough, so that you can keep up enough. See, here's the thing. All right, and AI is doing it again, but I'm going to go back to an old example. I'm going to go back to the early dial-up days of the internet. Okay? I mean, now, for those of you that don't understand what the dot-com era was like, what the dot-com boom was before it went bust, so we're talking pre-2000, literally, and AI is doing the same exact thing right now. So you could take the word internet out of that and put in the word AI in this, and it would be absolutely totally the same. Okay, because what investors knew is that only about 1 out of every 10 thing they invested in was going to hit. But they knew that it was going to hit so hard, it was going to make so much money that they would recoup all of the money they lost on the 9 other failed investments and make a, 2 to 10, usually it was more like 10 to 20 ROI. So you take the money they put into all 10 of those investments, one of them hit, and then they would 10 or 20x that money. So let's just use a round figure for you. And let's say they put $100,000 into 10 things. That would be $1 million. Okay. That means that 9 of those companies failed, and the other one, they would still end up making $20 million out of that one $100,000 investment. And that's the way it was working. And that's the way a lot of people are having things in AI right now. It's the same concept. And so people were constantly putting out, do this, try this, do this, try this. Here's this new thing. Here's this pitch. And yesterday I was pitching you this, but today I'm back with, the other thing. And it's like watching an episode of Shark Tank. But imagine that every single pitch that's on Shark Tank is one person. and everything that's being pitched. So then take an entire episode, or rather an entire season of Shark Tank, have that be only the pitches from one person, and have them all happen just back to back. Have them be one day after the next. Okay, so today, here's my 5 pitches. Tomorrow, here's my next 5 pitches. And that's what being in an explosive growth bubble for a technology, that's what it creates. And that's where we all go awry. Because again, and I'm going back, through history, because unless we learn the lessons of history, we're destined to repeat them. And if we don't learn the lesson that the internet boom taught us, there will be AI will experience a crash, a massive bust too. That bubble will burst, and there will be a whole lot of people. Because if you do some research, you can find a whole lot of people that were in internet space. They made millions, tens, hundreds of millions of dollars. And then they got out. They got out before it went bust. And they sold their stuff. Back in, don't quote me on this, but 2002-ish, might have been 2003. By that point, high-speed internet through your cable company was just beginning to roll out. And it was in some neighborhoods and not in some. And so there was still a lot of dial-up internet going on back then. But at that point, there were companies, and I actually was in the process of forming a company that was going to buy up. There were hundreds, if not millions, hundreds of thousands, if not millions, of dial-up internet companies, dial-up internet users who the company was actually up for sale. And the price to buy them was half, or at the most, the cost of 1 month of them paying. So if the person paid, so in other words, if you bought out that company and that person paid once, you covered all the cost of having acquired that company. Meaning that they paid the second month, you had doubled your money. And there was a huge thing in there. And I was actually trying to put together the investor. And if I knew the people then that I know now, I totally would put together the investor platform. And I would have bought probably about 1 million dial-up customers then. And I'll tell you, even the business model for it, I would have bought all of them for selling them off to cable companies for high-speed internet. Because right then, the cable companies were paying $200 per new person that switched off a dial-up and went onto their service. So if I could buy a customer at $20, sometimes it was more like, in most cases, it was more like 10 to 15. But let's just use easy math. If I could buy a customer at $20 and sell them for $200, and if it took them 2 days or 2 years, I was making $20 a month off of them, which netted out to about $10. It was about half of it was, the cost of customer service and acquisition of, providing the internet to them. Just a huge opportunity. And people were, doing that same kind of thing. And the same thing's true in AI now. And there will be, after the more than likely impending bust, there will be a bunch of that low-hanging fruit. And I'll be looking for those kind of opportunities and maximizing them this time. But what lasted? What made it? The people who made a ton of money investment-wise, that was just them seeing a concept and throwing money at it. Because I can also tell you a whole bunch of people who, even though statistically 1 out of 10 hit, I know people who invested in 20, 30 different ones and lost everything. I have some personal friends that lost several millions of dollars investing in internet companies that didn't go through. And I'm not so much doing that because this is supposed to be this big long talk on investing, but rather about the investment of your time. You see, AI, the internet, newspapers, if you want to go way back in history, radio, television, cable, satellite dishes. I had a buddy of mine that before there were cable companies was a satellite, that's what he did, was installed satellites. And he doubled down on satellite being, because satellite actually is a better service for you. And I'm not talking about the little direct TV dish that we all have now. I'm talking about the full scale, you can access all the antennas out there. Is actually a much better investment, than cable ever will be. But the world didn't go that way because cable ended up giving an ease and an ease to market, rather than spending several $1,000s to install the satellite system and have to know how to be able to, hone it in and do all those things so you could get the stations you want. You just paid, back then it was probably 50 to $100, and you had, all this TV on your thing. And he lost hundreds of thousands of dollars because he went down the wrong path, because he chased a trend. And when he learned the lesson of knowing who he was, knowing that he was an expert in audiovisual technology, meaning sound and video, okay, in houses and in businesses. And when he understood that, he created a business for himself that has lasted. That was the or the early 90s, actually, when I worked with him. And his company still exists, and they're still making money. And they've had some really great new things that came up. When drive-throughs at restaurants, all went wireless. So instead of having a cable underneath of the wire or over that went out to the box, they had wireless, which is so much easier to service. He made hundreds of thousands of dollars going in and setting up wireless systems for places that didn't have, the little talkie board, and then, the ability to drive through, as well as upgrading all the drive-throughs. But he didn't then become that company. He stayed that time in his zone of genius, an absolute expert in audio technology in all of its forms. And yes, that phone is just going crazy today. And I'm sorry, but it'll just have to bleep away. We know that my phone doesn't, it's pretty hard to get the volume to go down right now. So I apologize. Why am I saying all these things, and why does it maybe feel a little scattered and random? Because I wanted to give you some really real world examples of what reinvention, constant chasing trends, what it does to you, and how you end up never really landing. Whereas when you know yourself, when you have that clarity of who you are, what you're passionate about, and what the purpose and what the use for it is, and then you consistently, repetitively give it to the world for the purpose of connecting, because your heart, you want to help people. Inside of you this thing that you're passionate about, that thing that you could talk about for hours. And you've taken the time to clarify, what's the why beneath that? Why is that important to me? And then gone deeper than that and said, so what words would be able to express why that's so important to the person who that's important for? Why is it important for you to hear me tell you stories about 1997 or 8 in the days of the internet, or 2003 in the days of the internet? Not because I want you to go back and use dial-up internet. Not because I'm currently looking at this really great investment in dial-up internet access, but because it's a great example of how throughout the years of my life, I've both had clarity as well as had times when I haven't had clarity. And when I stay in this lane of helping you maximize the best version of you in the day that's called today, tomorrow will be here soon enough, far too quickly. The question is, who are you? Do you know yourself well enough that you can show up as the best version of you today? Not, do you need to constantly reinvent yourself every day, every week, every month, every year? First you're this, then you're that, then you're this, then you're that, And maybe you even do really well at it because the trend blows up. But the thing about it is that trend is eventually going to go away. Right now, everybody's talking about AI, and it's going to be around for, the growth of it's going to be around for several years. And so, yeah, absolutely. But if you go into that, learn the lesson that the railroad companies, totally blew it on. The railroads back in the mid 1800s, when they began to extend the railroad across the entire country, and you get to into the early 1900s, it was interesting watching the Yellowstone prequel that's 1923, I think it was called, and just how expansive and extensive the rail system for people to go via train. I can tell you these days, I've taken several train trips, or a couple of them, they're cool, but there's also limited places that they go. Whereas back in the day, there were just so many of them. And the rail, if you go in through your neighborhood, look at a map, you can see where all the train tracks are, and there's still freight trains moving on them. Okay, so it's not that rail has gone away. According to what I was told, and I don't know if this is true, but according to what I was told, it still is the safest way to move toxic chemicals. That the chance of a rail accident that's going to spill toxic chemicals, and that does still happen, is like 1 in 1,000 to it happening, if it was on a truck and, car and those kind of, and the exposure is massively worse. But what the train companies didn't identify themselves as is being in the transportation industry. And so as the car became, more practical, and we began to have roads that went all the way from one side of the country to the other side of the country, and you could stop whenever you wanted to stop, and you could go to wherever specifically exactly you wanted to go, versus, the stops being where the trains stopped at. You could go anywhere, or you could go out into the middle of nowhere. And then technology can continue to grow. And really, technically, if you want to talk the next industry, the auto industry, they didn't see themselves as being in the people mover industry. So you have the rail companies still around. They've merged, and now it's Burlington Northern Santa Fe, I think, there may be another one that's part of that now, versus it used to be Burlington, there used to be a Northern, there used to be a Santa Fe. I know there is one other one that's in that one, but I can't think what it is right now. Now they're one great big conglomerate that has joined together. But both them and then the auto industry didn't see themselves as being in the people mover industry. And so the airplane was invented. And then commercial air flight became more and more and more practical. And let's face it, getting on a plane and going from, Wichita, which is the nearest major airport, it's about hour and 45 minutes from me, versus Kansas City Airport being about 3 hours from me. I do have a little regional airport, but blah, blah, blah. Anyway, getting on that plane and spending about 4.5, I think it said, 4-ish hours on a plane, and I can be in Seattle. Versus, if I get on a train, it's two major changeovers, and B, it's about 60 hours of train travel. If I drive it, it's probably, don't quote me on this, but it's probably about 36 hours, maybe 40 hours of driving to drive there. And so that's huge way of being able to get places you need to get to quickly. And if the auto industry, if the rail industry would have seen themselves in the people mover industry, if they'd have known the heart and soul and core of what they're truly passionate about, you'd be flying, maybe not Amtrak, maybe it'd have a different name, but you'd be flying Amtrak Air. They would own it. Now you could talk about all the monopoly breakups and all those kind of things, and we're not going to go down that path. See, when you understand your passion, as trends come and go, you be you in that, and you're poised to maximize exactly what you need to be with that particular trend when that particular trend comes up. If you're reinventing yourself constantly because of what the trend is, you never have anything solid. There's no solid ground underneath of you. And the carpet just keeps getting pulled out from underneath of you. Your audience doesn't get tired of hearing your message. You could say the same thing. You could literally come on, do your live every single day, and just say the same thing that you said yesterday. And for those of you that listen to me all the time, you're probably like, yeah, you did that yesterday, and you said pretty much. And you'll get better at it, and you'll get clearer at it, and you'll have a ton of life experiences and examples, and you'll weave them in. So there'll be some nuances to it. But ultimately, just like I'm showing you here, you need to be clear. You need somebody to help you find your clarity so that you can consistently connect with other people. And that's what Visibility Amplifier is for. We created visibilityamplifier.com. It's a community here on Facebook that you can join so that you can craft your message that leads to you showing up clearly, consistently to connect to the people that you're meant to connect with. Your audience needs your repetition. They don't need you to be reinvented. Okay? I appreciate you so much. Tomorrow we're going to get together and we're going to talk about the day your voice gets louder. Doesn't mean you're screaming, but the day that it begins to expand in its reach. Some cool things. I had even just a cool conversation. I've had so many cool conversations this week of people that are now approaching me because they want what I'm sharing here. And the more you're consistent, the more that people are going to want to be part of what you do because they know who you are and they can see what you do. And all of those things are coming. But in the meantime, visibilityamplifier.com. Come join us. I'm so grateful for you. I appreciate you in this world. I really do. I hope you're happy, safe, warm, and loved. And I hope that until we're together again next time, which is tomorrow, by the way, I hope you have a great week.